shape, or form. Actually, I'm very excited because it's one of my favorite times of the year. And it doesn't happen every year, but we get to watch the Olympics. And I love the Olympic Games. I don't know how y'all feel about it, but I love to watch the Olympics. And it's not because I'm especially sporty, if you can see. Sports are not my forte, never have been. But I enjoy watching the Olympics for a number of reasons. And we get a chance to do that now for the next few weeks. And that's exciting to me. So I wanted, as I was thinking about today, I was thinking about the Olympics in general. A lot of people know how the Olympics started back in Greece, and that's one of the things that they try to highlight in the Olympic Games is that contribution that Greece had to starting those sporting games. But I was also looking online for some information about the Olympics because I don't really know much about the Olympic committees and things like that, how that happens. And I found some information on the values and the things that the Olympics are trying to support in their mission statements about why they continue this tradition of having athletes from all over the world come together and compete. And I thought that was very interesting because I thought, oh, they should have a mission statement. And most of us all should have mission statements for the things that we're doing in our lives. So I found that the three values of the Olympic Games are excellence, respect, and friendship. Those are the three values that they try to highlight in the Olympic Games. And they say that those three values are a way to promote sports, culture, and education to build a better world. And really, when you think about it, the primary reason for the Olympics is to get a whole bunch of people together from all over the world, and in some ways to have a big party, which I think is kind of fun. But it's also to compete in these sporting activities, but competing in a way that is about celebrating excellence and also about supporting anyone who is trying to strive for that, And to me, that is something that is really amazing in a lot of ways because we don't always support that. I know that here in America, we tend to be very competitive when it comes to sports, and I do it too. I grew up in a family. I was not a sporty person myself, but my father was very interested in sports and watched pretty much any sport that was on television. And that was the only kind of television we watched. So if I wanted to kind of bond with my dad, I needed to sit and watch a football game or a basketball game or a baseball game. So I learned really early all about different sports and different rules in the sports and things like that. But I enjoyed doing that because it was something that he loved. But he was also very competitive, like a lot of people are. And so it was, about winning. And it was about, that was the most important part of sports. And I thought it was interesting and really valuable that the idea behind the Olympics is that it doesn't matter. Yeah, they have Olympic trials and you have to, get to a point where you can get into the Olympics. But they're really about trying to support the idea that if you're striving for excellence, that you're striving for your best, then that's what they're trying to support. And there's always Olympic stories about people who, are the underdogs or the people that you don't expect to win all the medals or whatever it is, who end up having a wonderful experience at the Olympics where, for whatever reason, they excel more than they have in the past. And maybe they end up winning a medal, or maybe they end up winning something that's more important, which is that idea of camaraderie and friendship and unity that is what the Olympics really does symbolize. So they talk about in the Olympic mission statements and things, they talk about excellence being the idea of striving to be the best you can be. And I think that for all of us, that's something that we can all do in terms of, no, it doesn't have to be in relation to sports. It can be in relation to just being a good human being, to strive for excellence in everything that we do. And that's not always easy because sometimes we get worn out and we get tired or we get frustrated or we get whatever it is that is holding us back from being the best that we can be. And so I think being a spiritual person in a lot of ways is about recognizing within ourselves when those kinds of things are happening and recognizing within ourselves how we can change our own energy in some way so that we can get back to being the best person that we can be, to being the best fill in the blank that we want to be. And so that idea of excellence, striving to be the best that we can be, is something that really resonated for me. They talk about respect in the Olympics, respect for other people, respect for the rules, respect for your opponents, respect for the environment, and respect for the public. And again, I think those are things that we can apply to our own selves. I honestly, the one that sticks out here to me is the one that's for the rules, respect for the rules. And as somebody who doesn't always like the rules, and as somebody who, pushes back a lot of times against rules, that is meaningful to me in the idea of there are rules for reasons. And sometimes rules may not be the reasons that we think they should be. But when I think it's important as a person too to sit down and evaluate why those kinds of rules are in place, whatever the rules are. They can be rules like, where at your job about like what kind of outfits you can wear, or how long your lunch hour is. It's not an hour, it's 30 minutes or whatever. Those are rules. And sometimes we don't like being told that that's how we have to run things. But at the same time, usually those rules are there for reasons. And if we can examine that, I think we can find reasons to be respectful of why those are in place for the better of everyone. And in the Olympics, the rules are the rules. I mean, they don't change the rules very often, depending on what particular sport you're talking about. And there are people that are there to make sure that everyone's doing things the way that they need to do. And then people don't have advantages necessarily that others don't. And that's equality, that's equity. That's the idea of all of us having a level playing field to start from. So I think that's important. And of course, respect for ourselves and for other people is a primary thing that all of us, no matter what we're doing, should always be have at the forefront of our minds. As I read through a lot of these things, we're at a point in our life. I was talking to Penny before we started today. We're at a point in our society and in our, especially here in the United States, in our country and those kinds of things, where we're so divided about certain things. And one of the things I think that we don't recognize or don't try to focus on as much is the idea of unity and respect. And that's where unity comes from, is from respect. You have to respect the other people, even if you don't agree with them. To be disrespectful is disrespecting the idea that they're divine. They are divine beings, just as you're a divine being. And so if you're being disrespectful to someone else, then you're being disrespectful to that greater, higher power that created that. And that doesn't mean that you can't disagree or that you can't vehemently oppose something, because you can, but you have to do it in a respectful way. And I think the Olympics shows us that. It's interesting to watch I always love to watch like the team sports where they're team sports, but they're also individual sports like gymnastics, where, I watched something yesterday, one of the gentlemen on the men's team in America, he just he just totally blew his chances of being in medal contention for anything, because of a performance that he had. And I thought it was heartbreaking to watch, but it was also encouraging to watch because all of the other people on his team were so supportive, and the coaches, and they knew how crushed he was. And it was just wonderful to watch people try to be supportive and loving and encouraging, when someone was going through this really horrible disappointment. And to me, seeing those kinds of things, that gives me hope. That gives me hope that we're all going to be able to do that for each other when we all have disappointments or loss or failures in our life, because we're going to have them. We're all going to have them. We may not have them on the same stage as they do at the Olympics if something goes wrong, but to have that support and that love and that respect from the people around you, what more could you want? And we know from natural law that when we put out a particular energy, that's the energy we receive back. So if we're putting out that respectful energy to others, that's what we're going to receive. So that's something to keep in mind. And the last value that they talk about, friendship, that is always, to me, something to strive for, bringing people together. The idea that the Olympics does bring people together, and people from other cultures and people that have different philosophies of life and different ways of living, just being together and understanding and acknowledging that we all live in different ways, but that doesn't mean we're different so much as we just have other ways of doing things. The idea that we're setting a rivalry aside, and the idea that there's more that unites us than divides us, is a big sort of tenet of the Olympics and the games. And it's true. If we go back to that idea that I was just talking about of the divine, every person in this room, every person outside the window, out on the street, we all have that divine nature within us. That's what unites us. That's the thing that is what keeps us together as beings on this planet. And so that divine nature is what we need to focus on. And if we can try to remind ourselves of that when we're having conflict, or when we're having, second thoughts about something that someone said or something that someone did, then we can go back to that idea of compassion and forgiveness and compromise, hopefully, that will bring us together in friendship, because that's what we need here in the world. So the Olympic committees talk about the idea of Olympism, which that's a new word for me, Olympism. But they talk about it as a philosophy of life. The idea that you're focusing on and combining in a balanced whole the qualities of body, will, and mind. And again, for me, not being a real sports-oriented person, I don't think that much about, what's happening with conditioning the body and those kinds of things that you need to have for sports. But the idea that we're combining body, mind, and spirit, which is basically what they're talking about here, that to me is something that I can understand. Because I think in the philosophy of spiritualism and in a lot of other esoteric and metaphysical traditions, that's what we talk about. The idea that we are combining those energies. We are a person here in a body here in the world, but we also have energy, parts of our energy field, and we have our mind, and we have our spirit that are all different parts of the whole energy. And bringing that together is a philosophy. It's the idea of how do I live the best life that I can, taking all of that into consideration. So they're seeking to create a way of life based on joy, joy that's found in effort, joy that's found in education, joy that's found in example, and joy that's found in respect for universal ethical principles, which, when I read something like that, I think, wow, that's something to really strive for. That idea that we can have moments of joy in all of those things. Because we're creating a way of life that's based on principles that are supporting joy, that are supporting the idea that we can be unified, that we can work together, that even if we're competing against each other, that we can still uplift each other. So even if I don't win something, but you do win something, I might be disappointed, but I'm also happy for you. And that's the kind of philosophy and energy that they're trying to manifest and create. And I think that they do that in the Olympics. I think that they really do. If you watch the games, you'll see that many, many times. And they're also committed to building a more peaceful, better world by educating people through sport without discrimination. And I think that that's an important piece of things too. And, the Olympics has not always done that necessarily, but they've evolved over time. And now we have the Paralympics too, which is a wonderful thing that is really amazing to watch and support as well, because those are folks that are working against, something that's a barrier in their own life, and working over that, or working through that, working past that, so they can achieve something. And then that's such a great goal to have. We all have impairments, whether they're seen physically or not, we all have those. So it's a wonderful sort of idea and energy that I think that the Olympic Games bring to all of us, if we choose to sort of support that or look at it or watch, or just talk about it in terms of, hey, we're bringing the world together to try and do something for a few weeks. We don't do that very often, and the idea that we can do that and that we want to do that gives me hope that maybe someday that we'll do that all the time. And I'm not just talking about having an ongoing Olympics. I'm talking about the idea of living together harmoniously, with different cultures, different backgrounds, different abilities, different ways of approaching things. That idea that the Olympics reminds us that we can shine as individuals, because when we shine as individuals, we're shining as a divine being. That's what we're doing. And we can also do our best to remain humble, to remain supportive and respectful in our interactions with others, because they're divine too. And so for me, watching the games, it's exciting. I think it's amazing to watch some of the people with things that they are able to do. It's amazing to me. Physically, I could never do half of 3/4, probably 99% of what any of those people do, from a physical standpoint. It's amazing. And I think it's something to celebrate. We're celebrating human achievement, but we're also celebrating human achievement in our approach to life and in our approach to bringing people together, our approach to unity, which is, I think, something that we all need right now. So, if you're not an Olympics person, it's okay. But I would encourage anybody to watch, find something that is, maybe different, or something that you've never seen before, because it can be really fascinating to watch people engage in activities that you don't know anything about. My husband and I were watching handball the other day, and I thought handball was taking your hand and a ball and smacking a ball against a wall. I thought that's what handball was. It's not. In the Olympics, that's not what it is. It's kind of like basketball, but you don't have a basket that you're shooting in. You're shooting in a goal, and there are certain rules about how you can move and where you move and stuff. It was fascinating to watch it because I was like, wow, that's really cool. And so many of the sports that we play come from, indigenous cultures, and the idea that, things like field hockey and what's the one with the nets? Um, the ones where oh God, I'm terrible. Anyway, a lot of those come from indigenous cultures because they were games that they played, and they passed down from generations. So now breakdancing is a part of the Olympics, which is amazing to me. And that's a cultural thing that grew out of hip hop culture. And so there are still sports that are not acknowledged in the Olympics, but I think it's really interesting. I can't wait to watch the breakdancers because I want to see what they're going to do, and I want to see how they're putting like rules and parameters around that. Like, what can you do and what can't you do, and how do you stretch those rules a little bit, because everybody's always kind of stretching the rules or trying to push against those rules, just so they can be better. So anyway, watch the Olympics. Have fun with it. It's a reminder to us all of our own divinity. And it's a reminder to us of the divinity that's within each of us. And so it's an amazing sort of thing to support and watch and to be a part of, this unity of the world that comes together. So, in the oh God, no. Thanks. You're all so sweet. We're going to do a meditation now. So I would invite you to get comfortable in your chair for a minute.
Want music?
Just allow yourself, close your eyes to refocus inward. One of the best ways to do that is to begin by focusing on your breath in and breath out. Breath in, breath out. Breath in. As you continue that breathing in and that breathing out, allow yourself to relax. Feel yourself get a little heavier in your chair. Breathing in peace. Breathing out anything from the day that's worrisome or stressful, just letting it go. Letting all of that drop away from you for the next few minutes. So you continue to breathe in, breathe out. Open, being yourself, just being. No expectation, with no judgment. In this moment, who you are. If other thoughts start to come into your mind, just acknowledge them and let them go. About anything else right now. In here, this moment. Yourself. Grace. And peace. As you continue to do that, continue to breathe. Find within yourself that small pinprick of light that is the divine. See that within yourself. Find that wherever it is inside of you. That small light of divinity. And as you see that light, allow that light to become bigger, to grow, to expand. To fill your whole self with that beautiful divine light. As that light expands within yourself, feel the peace, feel the joy that comes from that light. That recognition, your own divine energy. As that light continues to expand, allow it to expand outside of your physical self, so that it fills up your auric field that's all around you. This beautiful divine light. So that divinity is all around you on every side. Above your head, below your feet, enveloping you in this beautiful feeling of love and joy. Recognize that this is your natural state being. Being filled with love, being filled with joy. Being divine. Know that as you continue throughout your day today, that light continues to be within you. It continues to surround you, so that you bring that light and that love and that joy to every situation, every interaction. Doing so that you create a more joyful, loving, unified world. So trusting that you stay in this perpetual state of divinity. Allow yourself to begin to come back to this physical place. Here in your chair, in this room. Begin to feel your physical self once more, the ground beneath your feet. Wiggle your fingers and your toes to come fully back into your body. When you feel ready, open your eyes, wide awake and relaxed, wide awake and divine.